Just as I was settling in for the evening, the doorbell rang. Barefoot, wrapped in nothing but my husband's old shirt, one of the few things I had held on to, it hung loose over my shoulders, comfortably oversized with the front buttons casually undone. It was just snug enough to remind me I was still in my own skin. Hardly what one would call decent, but at that moment I couldn't bring myself to care. When I swung the door open, I was met with the sight of a young man balancing two large pizza boxes, shifting awkwardly from one foot to the other as if he'd been caught doing something he shouldn't. Hi, he mumbled, his gaze flickering up to mine before darting back down. I noticed the way his fingers tensed around the boxes, gripping them a little tighter. He couldn't have been older than 22, maybe 23. Copper-toned hair curled at the edges beneath his cap, his clean-shaven jawline sharp against the soft glow of the porch light. His eyes had a certain brightness, though he barely held my gaze long enough for me to read them. The name tag on his uniform read Ethan. The fabric clung to his chest and arms in a way that suggested he spent time doing more than just carrying pizzas from one doorstep to the next. Pizza, I echoed, realizing I was just standing there, the door wide open, the cool night air brushing against my bare legs. I felt the hem of my shirt shift slightly. His eyes flickered downward for a fleeting second before they shot back up, wider now, his nervousness unmistakable. Yeah, one large pepperoni for Lisa. That's me. I offered him a small, apologetic smile, suddenly aware of just how undone the front of my shirt was. Crossing one arm loosely over my chest, I tried to appear casual, but the damage was already done. His expression wavered between politeness and panic, and oddly enough, it was kind of endearing. He extended the pizzas toward me, but as I reached to take them, I fumbled with my phone and the stack of mail I had been carrying. An envelope slipped free, fluttering to the floor. Oh, shoot! Hang on, I said, bending down to retrieve it. The sudden movement must have startled him. In his attempt to adjust his grip, one of the boxes nearly toppled to the ground. Whoa! Sorry! He blurted out, catching it just in time. His face flushed a deep shade of red. It's okay, I reassured him, biting back a laugh. I'm not great at multitasking either. For a moment, we stood there in an awkward silence, both of us recovering from the near disaster. Finally, I took the pizzas, my fingers accidentally brushing against his. His skin was warm, and unless I imagined it, I swore I felt the slightest flinch at the contact. Thanks, I said softly, holding his gaze a second longer than necessary. He cleared his throat, quickly averting his eyes. No problem. He shifted uncomfortably before adding, Enjoy your pizza. I smiled, hoping it looked friendlier than I felt. I will. Oh, hang on. Turning back to the side table, I grabbed a $20 bill and pressed it into his hand. His eyes widened. This is too much. Keep it, I interrupted, winking in a way I hadn't in years. Before he could argue, I closed the door. The moment the latch clicked, I leaned against the door and let out a breath. That whole exchange had been absurd, yet there was something lingering in the air, something I couldn't quite define. The ghost of his warm touch still clung to my fingers. For a 22-year-old pizza delivery guy, he had an oddly magnetic presence. Or maybe it had just been too long since I had felt anything like that at all. I carried the boxes into the living room, the rich scent of pepperoni and melted cheese filling the space. Milo, my ever-indifferent cat, lounged on the couch, lazily flicking his tail as he watched me. Looks like it's just you and me again, buddy, I muttered, setting the pizzas down on the coffee table. But as I settled onto the couch and pulled a slice from the box, I couldn't shake the memory of the way he had looked at me, or more precisely, the way he had tried not to. The nervous smile, the way his gaze kept dropping before he forced himself to meet mine again. There was something sweet about it, innocent, but there was also something else. I shook my head, trying to focus on my dinner. It had been so long since anyone had looked at me that way, since anyone had noticed me at all. After losing Mark 3 years ago, I had stopped expecting much from the world. My days had settled into a quiet, predictable rhythm. I told myself it was enough, But tonight, something had shifted. For the first time in a long while, my thoughts wandered somewhere unfamiliar, somewhere I hadn't allowed them to go in years. I took another slow bite, my mind drifting back to that young man, his nervous laugh, the way his hands fumbled, the warmth of his skin. I pulled my shirt a little closer, shaking my head at the ridiculousness of it all. Yet, despite my best efforts, the thoughts lingered. "What's wrong with you, Lisa?" I whispered to myself, half amused, half ashamed, but I didn't stop. Milo stretched, then leapt off the couch, disappearing into another room, leaving me alone with my reckless, ridiculous thoughts. The next morning, I woke with an unfamiliar excitement humming in my chest. It was the first thing I noticed before my brain even fully registered that I was awake. The second was that my hand was already reaching for my phone. Without thinking, I opened the pizza app, my heart beating a little too fast for someone simply ordering lunch. What were the odds that he would be the one to deliver it again? Probably slim, but I'd always liked taking chances. I placed the same order as the night before and pressed confirm before I could talk myself out of it. The delivery time popped up on the screen, 30 minutes or less. 30 minutes had never felt so long. When the doorbell finally rang, I rushed to answer it, smoothing down my shirt as I went. This time I had bothered to put on leggings, though I still left the top buttons undone. Casual, I told myself, just casual, no big deal. But when I opened the door, I was expecting him, or at least hoping for him. But instead of the nervous, copper-haired Ethan, a different delivery guy stood there. He was taller, leaner, with smooth, dark skin, striking green eyes, and a confident smile that suggested he was used to turning heads. "Afternoon, ma'am," he greeted smoothly, handing me the pizzas with a grin. For a moment I just blinked, caught off guard by how effortlessly charming he was. I hadn't anticipated someone new, but now that he was standing here, I couldn't exactly say I was disappointed. "Afternoon," I responded, offering him a small smile as I took the boxes from his hands. His fingers lingered just a second longer than necessary, subtle, but enough to make me wonder if it had been intentional. "You've got quite the taste in pizza," he remarked, glancing at the receipt. 2 days in a row. I let out a soft laugh, suddenly feeling a little self-conscious. What can I say? I know what I like. His grin widened. For a brief moment we just stood there, the air between us buzzing with something unspoken. "Enjoy the pizza," he finally said, taking a small step back. Then, as if on second thought, he slipped a piece of paper into my hand. "And if you ever need another recommendation..." I glanced down. Scrawled across the paper in easy, confident handwriting was a name, Mark, and a phone number. Raising an eyebrow, I looked back up at him, more amused than surprised. "Do you give your number to all your customers?" "Only the interesting ones," he replied with a wink, then turned and walked back to his car without waiting for a response. I stood there for a moment, holding both the pizzas and the slip of paper, feeling something unfamiliar yet intoxicating. Noticed. Wanted. When I finally closed the door and carried the pizzas inside, I realized I was still smiling. Maybe it was just a pizza delivery. Or maybe it was something more. Either way, I now had Mark's number, and I wasn't entirely sure I wanted to wait until the next delivery to use it. After Mark left, I curled up on the couch, legs tucked beneath me, absently biting into a slice of pizza. But my mind wasn't on the food. It was caught between two faces. Ethan, with his nervous, boyish charm, and Mark, with his easy confidence and those mesmerizing green eyes. I couldn't help but wonder, did they know each other? Had Ethan mentioned me? "There's this woman, lives alone." I imagined Ethan admitting, half shy, half thrilled about the way I had flustered him. Had Mark gotten curious, decided to take a delivery route just to see for himself? The way he had slipped me his number with that effortless grin, was it a coincidence or part of some playful dare between them? Or maybe I was just overthinking all of it. It had been far too long since I'd had this kind of attention, and now my imagination was running wild. I smiled to myself, taking another bite. Even if it was just a coincidence, it felt nice. nice enough to make me want more. The next morning, I found myself pacing the kitchen, phone in hand, Mark's number practically burning a hole in my pocket. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise. I wanted to hear his voice again, to see where this might go, even if it was nothing more than playful banter. After a brief hesitation, I dialed. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice came through, warm and smooth. "Hey, this is Mark." "Hi, Mark. It's Lisa. Thought I'd say thanks for the delivery the other night." There was a brief pause, then a chuckle. "Ah, the unforgettable Lisa. What's up?" I let my voice drip with amusement. "I was just thinking, I could really go for some more pizza." "That's so?" He sounded amused. "Are you looking for another delivery, or just an excuse to talk to me?" "Maybe a little of both." He laughed, a deep, rich sound that sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "I like the way you think. What's your order this time?" "Same as before," I teased. "And don't forget to bring that smile of yours. It's important." "Oh, don't worry," he said, his voice dropping just slightly, almost playful. "And hey, maybe I'll bring a friend too. You seem to like Ethan." My breath hitched for a second, but I covered it with a light laugh. "Oh, are you two a package deal now?" "Something like that," he replied smoothly. "See you soon." The knock on the door came faster than I expected. A slow buzz of anticipation curled through me as I made my way to the entrance, my pulse quickening. When I pulled the door open, both of them stood there. Ethan hovered slightly behind Mark, looking just as shy and nervous as before, though there was something new in his hazel eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. Meanwhile, Mark leaned casually against the doorframe, that same mischievous grin plastered on his face. "Hey," I greeted, surprised, but definitely not disappointed. "Both of you?" Mark shrugged smoothly. "Ethan was finishing his shift, so I figured I'd give him a ride home. Thought I'd bring him along for the delivery." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. Hi again," he muttered. I couldn't help but smile at how utterly adorable he was, so different from Mark's confidence. "Well, lucky me," I said, stepping aside. "Come on in. No sense in standing out there." Mark raised an amused eyebrow at my invitation, but neither of them hesitated. They stepped inside, and as I closed the door behind them, I felt it, the air shifting, an unspoken understanding settling between us. I turned toward them, flashing a teasing smile. "Can I get you boys a drink?" "Sure," Mark said easily, still grinning. "What have you got?" "Anything you'd like." Ethan cleared his throat. "Just water for me," he said quietly. I smirked at the contrast between the two of them. Water it is. Pouring them each a glass, I made my way back, handing them their drinks as they got comfortable on the couch. "So," I mused, crossing my legs as I took a sip from my own bottle. "Do you two always make deliveries together, or is this a special occasion?" Mark chuckled. "Let's just say Ethan told me a little about you." Ethan turned bright red, nearly choking on his water. I didn't say anything," I laughed, shooting him a playful wink. "Relax, I'm not mad." He looked down, cheeks still burning, and I found it undeniably endearing. Meanwhile, Mark was thoroughly enjoying the entire exchange. "I had to see for myself," he admitted, leaning back with that signature smirk. "You did make quite the impression on him." I picked up a slice of pizza, taking a slow, deliberate bite while holding Mark's gaze. "Well," I murmured, "now you've seen me. What do you think?" Mark's smile widened. "Better than I imagined." Beside him, Ethan shifted, clearly unsure whether to stay or leave. And I was just getting started. Ethan's nervousness was endearing in its own way, like he wasn't quite sure how to handle himself in a situation like this. "Relax, Ethan," I said gently, giving him a reassuring smile. "We're just having a little fun, that's all." Mark smirked, throwing his friend a teasing glance. "You good man? You look like you've never been invited inside a customer's house before." Ethan let out a small, awkward laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. "Not like this, no." I leaned back, taking another slow sip from my bottle. Well, there's a first time for everything. The three of us settled into an easy rhythm, eating pizza and exchanging playful banter. Mark kept things light, his words laced with suggestive innuendos that made Ethan shift uncomfortably, though he tried his best to keep up without turning completely crimson. I found the contrast between them fascinating. One effortlessly bold and flirty, the other sweet and shy, caught between intrigue and uncertainty. It was an unexpected combination, but somehow it worked. Once we finished the pizza, I excused myself to the bathroom, feeling both of their eyes follow me as I stood up. A thrill ran down my spine at the weight of their attention. Inside, I took a deep breath and reached for something a little more appropriate for the occasion. Slipping out of my shirt, I replaced it with a black silk robe, the fabric cool and smooth against my skin. The lace detailing along the edges added just enough elegance, and I let the tie rest loosely at my waist, leaving enough to the imagination while still making my intentions clear. When I stepped back into the living room, the reaction was immediate. Mark let out a low whistle, shaking his head in disbelief. "Damn, girl, you are not playing." Ethan, on the other hand, looked completely stunned, his jaw slightly slack, his hands fidgeting nervously in his lap. His eyes flickered over me, and when he swallowed hard, I had to bite back a knowing smile. I arched a brow, feigning innocence. "What? A girl can't make herself comfortable in her own home?" Mark leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze locked onto mine. "That's exactly the vibe, and I am 100% with it." I took my time walking toward them, enjoying the way their eyes followed my every movement. "You boys still hungry?" I teased, letting my voice remain light, playful. Mark grinned. "Depends. What's on the menu?" I laughed softly, lowering myself onto the couch between them, close enough to feel the warmth of their bodies on either side of me. "Why don't you find out?" For a brief moment, the only sound in the room was the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Mark tilted his head slightly, amusement dancing in his eyes. "You're full of surprises, Lisa," he mused, his grin never faltering. I turned to him, my own smile teasing. "So are you." Beside me, Ethan shifted, still unsure. His gaze flickered between the two of us, hesitating as if trying to decide whether he was supposed to be here or somewhere else entirely. I nudged him gently. "Relax," I said, my voice warm. "It's just a conversation. Nothing scary." He let out a breath, then chuckled, finally easing into the moment. And just like that, whatever tension had been lingering melted away, replaced by something else entirely, something electric and undeniable. That night, in the soft glow of my living room, surrounded by warmth and laughter, I realized just how much I had missed this, the feeling of connection, of being seen. And as the hours slipped by, I understood something else. Sometimes you get exactly what you order, but every once in a while, it comes with something extra, something you never even knew you wanted.